Thank you for joining us today for our LD5 Dems Bottoms Up podcast. My name is Marilyn Rendon, and I'm the chair of the LD5 Democrats. Today, we're joined by Charles Lucking, who is running for Arizona State House of Representatives for LD5. For this podcast, we will ask the same 10 questions to every candidate. They include 5 campaign and election type questions, as well as 5 get-to-know-you questions. The goal is to give you a high-level snapshot of the candidate and their goals. The posting of this podcast will include ways you can reach out to the candidate or their campaign for more information. Charles Lucking is a 5th-generation Arizonan. He comes from a family of public school students, of artists, activists, makers, volunteers, and doers. His background is in the public and private sector, law and finance, and public service. Charles is currently serving as LD5's representative, having been appointed following Dr. Amish Shah's resignation. And now, on to the questions. In 5 words, explain why you are running for office.
5 words, I'd say simply put, I'm not done.
Your opinion, what are the greatest challenges facing people living in LD5 now and in the coming years?
I'm going to give you a twofer here since we're living through a historic moment that I think deserves to be mentioned. And the first of those, and I think probably on everyone's mind right now, is reproductive freedoms. Our reproductive rights are such an incredibly important part of who we are as humans, and for anyone who has the ability to give birth, it's absolutely essential that we preserve those rights, and that's why today we got the repeal of the territorial abortion ban passed, and Governor Hobbs signed it, which was a huge win, but it's far from the finish line. And so, I know that we're all full steam ahead to get this on the ballot so that we can enshrine this in our Constitution. So that's, I know it on the front of all of our minds, but I'd also say that as I've been knocking on doors over the last few months, the one thing that I hear from all of our constituents, and the reason I took this job in the first place, is because of the housing situation that we're facing. Affordable housing in this city has become almost non-existent, and it's affecting every aspect of life for so many people here. And so that's why that's why I'm here in the legislature, and that's what my top priority is as well.
Question 3. If elected, what is the one thing you hope to achieve your first year in office?
So as you know, I was appointed, and like I mentioned before, the reason I took the job was, or the reason I threw my hat in the ring for the appointment was, prior to this, I was working as a staff attorney with Community Legal Services in our eviction unit. I got a deep dive on housing and poverty in Arizona, but mostly in the fact that our eviction systems here are completely broken. They're archaic and have been attacked over the decades, and are inequitable. And so that's the reason I went for the appointment. And so I'm working now with stakeholders on completely rewriting our eviction codes, coming up with new systems, new rules and procedures. And so that's the really big one for my for my first year. That being said, I've got a big whiteboard in my office at the Capitol, and I keep an evolving list of legislation I'm going to sponsor. Evictions at the top, but the first one that I think we really need to pass, if we do end up flipping the ledge, is getting the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, ratified. I've had conversations with colleagues about doing that day one. So fingers crossed, and I think that's what we're going to do first thing.
Question 4. What is your approach to building unity and navigating divisive political situations?
Such a pertinent question right now, with the times we're living through. When I was a Peace Corps volunteer, the most important thing that a volunteer does is build relationships with people in our communities and with coworkers and stakeholders. It's hard, especially when you're new to speaking a language, but that's the case. You default to connecting on simple things, the things that bind all of us: a meal, laughter, discussions of family, beer helps. And when you understand those things and when you understand each other as humans who essentially share way more than the differences that separate us, it's really easy to talk through the challenges and find common ground. It takes effort, it takes a touch of bravery. Mostly what it takes is a sense of curiosity and an interest in people. Those of us in the legislature are there because we want to solve problems. Maybe we come to solutions from different directions, but if you do the legwork, you can find ways to meet in the middle. It's the same as negotiating settlements in law. It takes a willingness to have the conversation and to work to move beyond the speed bumps to the end goal.
What is one thing you want people to know about your governing style?
As I said, the day that I swore in, I'm not just willing, but I'm also eager to have those conversations with anyone who's there for real communication. There's a lot of people that just want to shout, but my purpose for being there is, as a servant of the people in Arizona, is to make things better and to take us step by step forward instead of backward. And I do that by listening. I do that by learning as much as possible, by fighting when a fight is needed, and by building the bridges when that's the appropriate course.
And now the get to know you questions. Number 6, what is your favorite thing about Arizona?
My favorite thing about Arizona is our history. As you know, my family's been here for 5 generations, 6 if you include my kids. Our state's history is, of course, not just 1912 or 1864. It's thousands upon thousands of years and untold generations. I feel the weight of the millennia here and of the chain of humanity that goes back so incredibly far. I understand that we right now are just a link in that chain, and it will continue forward long after we're gone. My hope is that I can do my part to make that chain a little stronger.
Number 7, who has had the greatest influence on your political career?
Sky has. She's my wife. She's brilliant, and she was politically minded long before I was. We met in the Peace Corps. She was a volunteer as well. We're both big readers. I was reading things like Gabriel Garcia Marquez and David Foster Wallace. She was reading Noam Chomsky. And so, she had, when I first met her, an incredible depth of understanding about progressive politics. When we moved back to the US together, we knocked doors for Obama, and over the last almost 20 years now, which I can't believe, government, politics, philosophy has been a very, very frequent topic of conversation in our relationship. And I've learned so much from her. And she has been so incredibly encouraging. And, we're people who do, and we're people who volunteer, and we're part of our community. And so, yeah, she's had an enormous impact on me.
Number 8, what is something most people do not know about you but should?
I am a backyard farmer. When Sky and I decided it was time to have a family, and we decided to move back to Phoenix, where I grew up, in order to have a family, my only criteria for getting our first home was that it have a backyard that was big enough to build vegetable gardens, plant fruit trees, build a chicken coop, and still have enough room for our kids and our big dogs to run around. So when I was building our chicken coop, Sky would make jokes about how I was literally nesting We grow carrots, we grow beets, broccoli, onions, garlic, leafy greens, and in our tiny orchard, we have apples, peaches, nectarines, pears, mulberries, figs, guava, mango, loquat, cherries, lots of citrus. The most exciting thing to me is that we have 2 huge avocado trees. Right now we have 6 laying hens. We're going to double that this coming fall. And we have 2 giant cuddly dogs, Karma and Coconut.
Number 9, how do you relax?
I have lots of ways I like to relax. I'm a huge music fan. I hike, run, read, garden, travel, cook. But my favorite thing is playing with my kids. We had a wild family game of tag a couple nights ago at sunset, and I tweaked my knee pretty hard. I'm a dormant marathon runner, so I'm used to occasional leg issues, but it hasn't quite sunk in yet that I'm 47 and I probably need to be more careful about my joints. Playing with the kids is physically exhausting, but mentally, it always brings me back to the big picture. It resets my mind after whatever weirdness happens during the day. And I'm always trying to continually build the bond and the connection with them and my wife. So whatever successes or failures are happening elsewhere in my life, I know that our family's on the right track.
Number 10, what is your favorite movie of all time?
It's probably a toss-up between a handful of early Steve Martin movies like The Jerk. I love that movie. But I'm going to talk about a TV show instead. We don't watch a ton of TV. Sky and I tend to pick a show that we might turn on and watch an episode one evening or maybe 2 a week when we have absolutely no energy left for playing music or board games or something like that. But there was a TV show that aired a couple of years ago that was so incredibly beautiful and different, and the title makes it sound kind of religious, but that's not what it is. It's called The Midnight Gospel. And it's a show where this like comedian slash philosopher podcaster named Duncan Trussell essentially takes one of his interviews from his podcasts and he lays over it this really kind of weird psychedelic animation, and the discussions are usually something surrounding the deepest concepts like what love is, what our relationship with death is, what it means to be human, that kind of thing. And then the last episode was an interview he did with his mother where she had terminal cancer and a very short time to live. And it was one of the most like beautiful and moving things I've ever seen in my life. So I absolutely love that show.
Thank you so much for joining us today for our LD5 Candidates Bottoms Up podcast. We are so proud to have another high-quality Democratic candidate.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. It's always a pleasure, and I really appreciate the opportunity to do this with you and share a little bit about who I am. Thank you.